The moon hung low over the Silvermere, pale and endless, a mirror of cold light rippling across frozen branches. The night was so still I could hear my own heart breaking. I had walked beyond the boundary stones, barefoot and silent, the hem of my moonveil gown dragging a trail of white across the snow. The laughter from the great hall followed me like a ghost. They were still celebrating Corin and Celine's union, sealed under the gaze of the Luminar. I should have been the one standing beside him. The goddess herself had whispered it in the dreamfire of my childhood. Every elder, every seer, every whisper of destiny had said Ilaria Wynne and Corin Vale were meant to be. But fate, it seemed, could be rewritten by pride. When the moment came, he did not take my hand. He looked at me as if I were a stranger, then turned to Celine Ardeen, the perfect wolf with her shining hair and pure bloodline, and said words that burned through the hall. I, Corin Vale, reject the bond with Ilaria Wynne. Her wolf is silent, her blood is tainted by shadow. The silence that followed was worse than a blow. I remember the way my mother flinched, the way my father's mouth opened but no words came. And I remember the eyes of the pack, pitying, hungry, cruel. I did not stay to hear the Luminar's priests call it lawful. I left before anyone could see that I was shaking. The forest received me without question. The Silvermere was said to be haunted by the wolves who had broken oaths. Their howls carried through the trees like prayers that had forgotten their gods. I wanted to be among them. I wanted the cold to still the pulse of shame in my throat. I pressed my palm to the snow, watching it redden where the ceremony's pin had pricked my skin. It should have clotted. Instead, the blood shimmered faintly. Silver at first, then deepened into a strange, glimmering rose hue that didn't look like blood at all. I rubbed it away quickly, heart pounding. No one could see that. No one could ever know. That color had betrayed me once before. When I was 13, a fever nearly took me. My mother had sat at my bedside, praying under her breath, until my vision blurred into stars. In the haze, I had felt something stir beneath my skin, an ache in my jaw, a hunger that wasn't mine. When I woke, she had whispered one warning, her eyes rimmed in terror. If you ever bleed again, Ilaria, hide it. You are not what they think you are. And I hadn't, until tonight. I curled beneath a cedar, whose roots broke the snow like black veins. The cold gnawed through silk and skin alike, but the numbness was welcome. My wolf, if she existed, was silent. My blood burned faintly where it touched air, as if remembering something forbidden. That was when I heard it. A sound so deep it seemed to rise from the bones of the earth. Not the tread of a man. Not the shuffle of a beast, something in between. I tried to move. I couldn't. The cold had anchored me in place. The wind shifted, carrying a scent unlike any I'd known. Smoke, iron, pine, and something old enough to have its own gravity. Then came the shape through the trees, a wolf vast as night, fur the color of silvered ash, eyes molten gold. King Aldrich Rowan, the Alpha of Alphas. Father of the man who had rejected me, ruler of the Rowan dominion. He stood at the edge of the clearing, his breath a pale cloud. The power radiating from him was not something you could see. It was something that rearranged the air around you, a force that made you aware of your own smallness. I couldn't even bow, I could only stare. He lowered his head, and the air cracked with the wet, wrenching sound of bone shifting. When I dared to look again, the wolf was gone, replaced by a man tall and broad-shouldered, wrapped in dark furs. His hair was the same silver-grey as the beast's coat, his eyes a startling, human echo of the same gold. "What are you doing here, little one?" His voice carried warmth beneath the command. "Do you court death in my woods?" I tried to answer, but my throat wouldn't open. He took a step closer, then another, until the scent of smoke and frost and male power filled my lungs. When his hand brushed my shoulder, heat rushed through me so suddenly it stole my breath. He frowned, inhaled once more and stilled. His gaze sharpened, searching my face. "You're freezing," he murmured, though there was something else in his tone, confusion, disbelief, and something else. He gathered me into his arms, as if I weighed nothing. The warmth of him was staggering. My body, starved for it, sagged against his chest. The rhythmic thrum of his heart filled my ears. We walked through the forest in silence, the snow swallowing our steps. I drifted in and out of awareness, catching flashes of torchlight as the Silvermere gave way to the castle walls. Guards bowed and looked away. No one dared speak. He carried me through the iron gates, through long corridors of stone and shadow, into a chamber lit by fire and gold. It was vast and quiet, the king's room. He placed me on the edge of a bed layered with furs so thick I sank into them. "Name," he said. "Ilaria," I whispered. "Ilaria Wynne." He repeated it softly, like he was tasting the shape of it. "Ilaria." He turned away, removed his fur mantle, and crossed to a basin near the fire. He poured warm water into a bowl, then knelt before me. When he took my hands in his touch startled me. It was not rough like a warrior's, but steady, deliberate. He washed the blood from my palm, his brow furrowing. The faint rose shimmer caught the firelight before I could hide it. He froze. "That color," he said quietly. "I've seen it only once before, in battle, long ago, when the Vera bled." I snatched my hand away. "It's nothing, just the cold." His eyes lifted to mine, sharp, ancient, knowing. "It is not the cold." The silence between us grew heavy, filled with things neither of us could yet speak. I thought he might send for the priests, call me abomination, end the story there. But instead he wrung out the cloth, placed it gently aside and said only, "Sleep. Whatever haunts your blood can wait for dawn." He rose, unstrapped the sword from his back, and leaned it against the hearth. "No harm will come to you here, I give you my word." He crossed to the door, pausing with his hand on the latch. The firelight traced the edge of his profile, the scar above his brow, the curve of strength beneath the calm. "I should not have found you tonight," he said, almost to himself. "And yet, the Luminar never misplaces what it means to return." Then he was gone. I lay there, wrapped in his furs, trembling not from cold, but from the memory of his voice. Something inside me, the place my wolf should have been, shifted and sighed, as if recognizing a sound it had been waiting for all its life. Outside, the wind changed. The moon dipped behind a veil of cloud, and in the dark, something ancient inside me whispered the truth I dared not name. It was not Corran who was written in my stars. It was the king. And this was only the beginning. The first thing Ilaria felt was the weight of silence. It pressed around her like snow on the branches above the Silvermere, thick, waiting, watchful. The fire in the hearth had burned down to amber light, and the world outside the chamber still slept. Her body ached, as if she had run for miles, but her mind was sharp, too sharp, filled with the echo of a voice that kept repeating in memory. "The Luminar never misplaces what it means to return." King Aldrich Rowan had said that before he left her to rest. But it had not felt like a dismissal. It had felt like a promise. She pushed herself upright. The furs fell away, heavy with warmth, and the scent of pine, smoke and iron. The linens that clung to her skin were soft, far too fine for someone who had been cast out only hours before. The chamber itself was a place of contrasts. Stone walls and carved oak, a warrior's hall softened by candlelight, and the low hum of fire. She touched her palm where the strange shimmer had appeared earlier. Faint traces of that rose-silver glow pulsed beneath the surface, as if her blood had remembered that it was different. A knock came at the door, light, but firm. Before she could answer, it opened just enough for the king himself to step through. His hair was damp, his tunic plain, his manner completely unguarded. The transformation from the myth she had known to the man before her startled her more than any crown. "You're awake," he said, voice low, roughened by lack of sleep. "Good. You worried the healers half the night." "I've worried people my whole life," she said before she could stop herself. A faint smile touched his mouth. "You speak easier today." "I shouldn't speak at all, Your Majesty. Not here. Not after." "Stop." The single word cut through her apology, like clean air through smoke. "You are under my roof. What was spoken in that hall is no law in this room." He came closer, stopping just far enough away to make it clear she could choose the distance. On a small table near the fire lay a tray of broth, bread and a carafe of water. He lifted the cup and handed it to her. "Eat first. Then we speak." Her hands trembled as she took it. The warmth steadied her. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees, eyes studying the flames. "I dreamt of blood," she said quietly, "and of the moon turning red." "The Luminar sends dreams to those it favors," Aldrich murmured. Sometimes they are warnings, sometimes invitations. He looked up at her then, the gold in his eyes catching the firelight. Tell me what you remember from last night. She recited the ceremony, Corin's rejection, the laughter, the snow. When she reached the part about her blood, her voice faltered. I don't know what it is, she whispered. I don't even know if it's mine. It is, Aldrich said, and it is older than this kingdom. He stood and crossed to a carved chest. From within he drew a small silver-bound book. The leather was worn smooth. This is the Codex Lunaris, he said, placing it gently on the table. It holds the oldest lore of our kind. There are pages here that speak of the veiled halo, the moment when the Luminar's light meets its shadow. It says a child born under that halo will carry both within her, the hunger of night and the heart of the wolf. Ilaria's breath caught. You think that's me? I know it is. He opened the book to a page where faded ink showed a circle divided by light and dark. You were born on the night of the eclipse, were you not? She nodded slowly. My mother used to call it the Red Veil. She said the moon wept that night. Then she knew. His expression softened, sorrow threading through the certainty. She must have known what she carried. The truth was a weight and a release at once. All her life she had tried to silence the strange hum in her blood, the restless pull toward shadows, the way her heart beat faster when the night deepened. Now it made sense. She was not broken. She was divided. Aldrich closed the book. Your secret is safe here, but others will notice soon enough. The scent of your blood will not fade. Then, I should leave, she said quickly, before it brings trouble. He shook his head. Leave, and they will hunt you. Stay, and I can protect you. Why? The question escaped her before she could stop it. Why risk your throne for someone you owe nothing? For the first time his composure wavered. His jaw tightened, and the gold in his eyes deepened to molten bronze. Because when I found you in the Silvermere, the bond answered. It was not my choice. The Luminar called your name through me. Ilaria stared at him, her heartbeat stuttering. That's impossible, Corin. Corin heard the echo, Aldrich said softly. A shadow of the true bond. The goddess sometimes tests bloodlines with illusions. She gave him your name so he could reveal his weakness. And then she gave you to me. The words were madness. Yet they sank into her like warmth. She remembered how his touch had pulled her from the edge of death. How her dormant wolf had stirred for the first time in years. What happens now? She whispered. We see if the bond is real, he said. And if it is, we decide what to do with it. By the next morning the castle was restless. Servants whispered in corners. Couriers moved through corridors, with messages sealed in wax, bearing the crest of the air. Corin Vale had returned from his wedding feast with fury in his wake. Ilaria stood by the window of a small solar adjoining the king's chamber. From here she could see the courtyard below, where soldiers of the Crestfang court drilled. The sound of their weapons was a steady rhythm, too controlled to be ordinary practice. They were preparing for a confrontation. When Aldrich entered, she felt the change in the air before she saw him. They're saying you've taken in a witch, he said grimly. Corin feeds their fear. Then tell them the truth. They would not hear it from you, and not yet from me. He crossed to her side, gaze on the courtyard. The pack trusts what it can name. They cannot name what you are. Nor can I, she admitted. He looked at her, and for the first time she saw something raw behind the king's discipline. Weariness, yes, but also longing. You are the missing half of a story I thought ended long ago, he said quietly. Before my first mate died, the seer told me her spirit would one day return, when the veiled halo rose again. I never believed it. Her throat tightened. You think I'm her reborn? I think the Luminar has strange ways of keeping its promises. The door slammed open. Corin strode in, his ceremonial cloak still streaked with snow. Celine Ardine gliding behind him. The room filled with the sharp scent of rage and perfume. Father, Corin said, voice clipped. We need to speak, alone. You may speak here. Aldrich's tone was even, but the authority beneath it made the torches flicker. What concerns me concerns my court. It concerns your honor. Corin's gaze cut toward Ilaria. You hide my cast-off in your chambers. You feed the very creature who humiliated our bloodline. Celine's voice was soft, deliberate. "The priests say her scent is wrong, my king. Not wolf. Not mortal." Aldrich turned his gaze on her, and even Celine faltered. "Be careful, Lady Arden. The priests answer to me." Corrin stepped closer. "You can command priests, not prophecy. The pack speaks already. If you shelter her, you violate the Moonveil law." "The Moonveil law was written by men," Aldrich said, each word heavy as stone. "The Luminar writes deeper." Corrin's hands clenched at his sides. "You think yourself above the goddess?" "I think I listen better than you." The air thickened. Ilaria could feel the power rising between them. Wolf against wolf. Blood against blood. Her pulse beat in her ears like wings. Without thinking, she stepped between them. "Stop," she said. "Please." The two men froze, both startled. Not by the word, but by what followed. The air shimmered faintly around her, a pulse of silver light that made the fire leap. Every wolf in the room stilled. Celine gasped. Ilaria's vision blurred. Heat surged through her chest, into her throat. She could feel her canines ache, lengthen. Her reflection in the window flashed, eyes not gold, not grey, but luminous rose. Aldrich reached her first, catching her before she fell. "Breathe," he ordered softly. "You're safe. The bond is waking." Corrin recoiled. "What is she?" "The truth you were too blind to see," Aldrich said. He lifted Ilaria into his arms again, cradling her as if she were made of glass. "This conversation is over." He carried her out past the stunned guards, through corridors that hummed with whispers, until they reached a narrow tower room lined with ancient runes. "Where are we?" she murmured, the glow fading from her eyes. "The sanctum," he said. "A place built for silence. The Luminar's voice can be heard here if one listens." He set her down, keeping his hands on her shoulders until she steadied. "Your blood answered mine today. The pack will not ignore it. There will be challenges. And Corrin will do what pride demands. But he cannot harm you while you bear my scent." He paused, then added more quietly, "Or while I draw breath." The declaration was both vow and confession. It filled the room, tangible as heat. Ilaria looked up at him. "And what if this bond destroys everything you've built?" "Then it will build something new," he said simply. "And I will not fear the goddess for giving me what my soul recognizes." The next days blurred into one another. Rumors grew like frost. The king ensorcelled, the outcast girl a blood witch, the heir preparing rebellion. Through it all, Aldrich kept the castle calm, his authority absolute. But his eyes found Ilaria's in every corridor, and the unspoken bond between them tightened. At dusk on the third night, he summoned her to the great hall. The torches burned blue-white, a sign of approaching eclipse. Above them, through the high windows, the moon hung swollen and shadowed. "The Luminar marks the veiled halo tonight," Aldrich said when she entered. "Prophecy or curse, we will meet it together." She hesitated at the threshold. "You're certain? Certain enough to trust you with a kingdom," he said. She crossed the floor to him. "And what do you ask of me?" "Only choice." He offered his hand, palm up. "If you take it, the bond will seal before the pack, before the goddess. If you refuse, I will still protect you, but we will be forever divided." Ilaria looked at his hand, at the faint silver scars that mapped his life. The pull between them was a living thing now, a heartbeat, outside her body. She thought of the cold night when he found her. Of the way his voice had steadied her, of the truth that had burned through fear. Her fingers slipped into his. The moment their palms met, the hall filled with light. Not fire, not moonlight, but something that carried both. The veiled halo shone through the windows, bathing them in red-silver glow. Every wolf in the Dominion felt it. Every old law trembled. Aldrich drew her close, his forehead against hers. "Ilaria Wynne," he said, voice a vow. "You are the half I did not know I was missing." "And you," she whispered, "are the reason my heart never stopped searching." The bond sealed between them with a low, resonant hum. The markings of the Luminar flared briefly on their skin. Two intertwined crescents, one pale, one crimson. When the light faded, he kissed her. It was not hunger, it was recognition, the meeting of two long-divided forces finally made whole. Outside, the first howls of dissent rose from the packlands. Corin's voice carried among them, furious, betrayed. But Ilaria felt no fear. Her wolf was awake now, calm and fierce, and her other half, the Vera fire, burned steady within her veins. Aldrich looked toward the windows, toward the gathering dark. "They will come," he said. "Let them. The goddess has already chosen." She touched his cheek. "Then we meet them together." The last of the moon's light slipped behind shadow, and the Silvermere wind rose like a hymn. In its sound was the truth that would define everything after. Light and darkness were never meant to war, they were meant to love. And in that union, the world began again. The moon bled red above Eryndor. Not the gentle blush of twilight, but a deep, steady glow that poured across the snow like spilled wine. The veiled halo had come. Every wolf in the Rowan dominion felt its pull in the marrow of their bones. Every secret that had slept beneath the skin of the kingdom began to stir. Ilaria Wynne stood beside King Aldrich Rowan on the terrace of the High Keep, wind in her hair, his hand warm against hers. Below them the courtyards churned with unrest, the pack gathering in lines of silver and black, torches blazing like the eyes of 100 doubting souls. "They will not understand," she whispered. "They do not have to," Aldrich answered. "They only have to see." He turned toward her, and the light of the blood moon caught the faint marks on their wrists. 2 interlocking crescents. One white, one rose-red. The goddess had already spoken. But mortals always demanded proof. The first howl broke the silence. Sharp, raw, defiant. Then another, and another, until the night itself seemed to snarl. Through the gate rode Corin Vale, cloak torn, armor dark with frost, Celine Ardeen at his side. Behind them came the frost-born guard, loyal to the air and to the law that said, no king may bond with what is not wolf. Aldrich's soldiers, the Crestfang court, stepped forward, shields braced, eyes flicking to their sovereign. No one wanted this. But destiny had never asked permission. Corin reined his horse hard at the foot of the steps. "You have betrayed our kind," he shouted. "You lie with shadow blood and call it divine." Ilaria felt the words hit like stones, but Aldrich only descended 2 steps, calm and absolute. "I have followed the goddess longer than you have drawn breath, my son. Do you think she would bind me to corruption? The goddess tests you," Corin spat. "And you fail." Celine lifted her chin, voice smooth as glass. "Give her to us, my king. Let the priests cleanse the taint. End this before the moon turns against us all." Ilaria stepped forward before Aldrich could speak. The moonlight caught her hair, silver at the edges, her eyes faintly glowing rose. "I am not taint," she said, voice clear across the courtyard. "I am what your goddess made when she tired of your fear." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some wolves stepped back, others leaned forward, as if hearing the truth for the first time. Corin's face twisted. "Then show them the monster you are." Ilaria closed her eyes. The bond between her and Aldrich pulsed once, twice, and then her body answered the moon. A shimmer ran across her skin, fur and light, fang and breath. Her wolf burst free at last, but it was no ordinary creature. Its coat glowed faintly with crimson shimmer, its eyes 2 pale suns. When she lifted her head and howled, the sound rang like a bell across the mountains. Half the wolves fell to their knees, the other half drew blades. Aldrich shifted beside her, his own wolf immense and dark, fur streaked with silver scars. Together they stood, light and shadow, united, while the moon poured its judgment over them. Corin raised his sword. "Then let the goddess choose." The first clash echoed like thunder. Steel met claw, howl met roar. The courtyard became chaos, brothers fighting brothers, the scent of iron rising thick and bitter. Ilaria moved through it like a storm. Her senses were sharper than she'd ever known. Every heartbeat, every breath, every lie in the air was visible to her now. She did not kill. She disarmed, turned, pushed, using light rather than rage. Where her blood fell, the snow hissed and bloomed with faint petals of silver flame. Aldrich fought near the gate, holding the line against Corin himself. Father and son circled, power against pride. "Yield," Aldrich said. blocking another blow. "This path ends in ruin. I will not bow to her," Corran snarled. "You've forgotten who you are." "I have remembered what I was meant to be," Aldrich replied. Their swords met again, sparks scattering. Corran lunged. Too hard, too wild, and Aldrich caught his wrist, twisting until the blade clattered to the stone. The king could have ended it. Instead, he released him. But Corran was not finished. He snatched a dagger from his belt, turned, and drove it not at his father but at Ilaria. The air screamed. She felt the blade pierce flesh, but not hers. Aldrich had moved faster than thought, taking the strike meant for her. The dagger sank deep into his side. He went to one knee, breath shuddering. Time stopped. Ilaria caught him as he fell, her hands slick with his blood. "No," she whispered. "No, not like this." He smiled faintly, even through pain. "The bond will hold." Corran stared at what he had done, horror dawning. The moonlight turned crimson, washing over all of them. Then the ground trembled. From the temple beyond the courtyard came a voice, ancient, resonant, neither male nor female. It spoke in the language of the Luminar, every syllable burning in the air. "Light and shadow are one. Those who deny the union deny me." The veiled halo split open above them, and from its center poured radiance. Ilaria felt the power surge through her, into Aldrich, into every living thing in Eryndor. The wound in his side began to close beneath her hands, the flesh knitting with threads of silver. His breath steadied. Corran dropped to his knees, weeping. Celine hid her face in her hands. When the light dimmed, the courtyard was silent, save for the sound of snow melting. Aldrich rose slowly, the mark on his wrist blazing bright. "The goddess has spoken," he said. "Let this war end." Corran bowed his head. "Father." No more titles," Aldrich said gently. "You are my son. Learn from what you've done." He turned to the pack, to all who watched. "We are no longer creatures of fear. We are children of the Luminar, who made night and day from the same breath." And then he reached for Ilaria's hand, lacing their fingers before everyone. "She is my queen, by fate, by bond, by choice." The crowd knelt. Not all willingly, but enough to change the world. By morning, the blood moon had faded to pearl. The Silvermere was quiet again, mist curling over the water like a sigh. Ilaria and Aldrich stood on the terrace where it had begun, the first rays of dawn turning the frost to light. "Eryndor will remember this night for 1,000 years, Aldrich said softly. "They will remember you," she replied. He smiled. "They will remember us." She traced the healed scar at his side. "Does it hurt?" "Only when you are far from me." She laughed, the sound fragile and true. "Then you will have to keep me close." The laughter faded into silence, comfortable and deep. Birds began to sing somewhere below. For the first time the world felt new, cleansed, balanced. Wolves no longer feared the shadow. The Vaera, those who had hidden in the Scarlet Veil, sent emissaries under the morning sun. The old war was ending. But prophecy was never one story. It was a thread that wove into others. Ilaria turned her face toward the light. "What will become of Corran?" "He has gone north," Aldrich said, "to learn who he is without envy. When he returns, he will help us build what comes next." "And what comes next?" He looked at her, eyes gold and gentle, a kingdom unafraid of its own heart. They watched the sun lift above the trees. The veiled halo's afterglow lingered in the sky, a faint ring of rose around the moon's ghost. Ilaria felt it pulse once more within her, the bond alive and eternal. In that glow, she saw the faces of all those who would come after, children born of Wolf and Vaera, bearing light in their eyes and shadow in their veins. A new lineage, free of the old divisions. She rested her head against Aldrich's shoulder. "We began in exile," she said. "And we end in dawn." He kissed her hair. "No, my queen. We begin in dawn." The wind from the Silvermere rose, carrying their scents through the forest, smoke, pine, and the faint sweetness of something newly made. Somewhere far below, the temple bells rang, slow and solemn, welcoming the age that would be known as the era of the veiled halo. And as the last echo faded, the goddess herself whispered through the light, Love is not the opposite of darkness. It is what gives darkness meaning. Centuries later, when travelers passed the ruins of the old keep at Eryndor, they told a story of the king and the hybrid queen who ended the war between moon and shadow. They said that on nights when the moon turned red, two wolves could still be seen standing on the ridge, one dark, one shining, watching over a land reborn from their love. No one feared those ghosts. They were the promise the world had needed, that love, once true, is never lost. It simply waits for the next dawn to find it again. The night faded, but the story lingered, as they always do. And now it's your turn, listener. If love can truly bridge bloodlines, curses, even centuries, then what about the walls we build in our own hearts? Would you have chosen fate, knowing it would burn the world that raised you, or would you have walked away safe but empty? Tell me. Do you believe the Luminar was right? That to truly heal what's broken in us, the light and the darkness we all carry, we have to stop choosing between them, and learn to love both.